All right, here we are back again for another episode of On the Bench with Beeks. This is number 32, technically one for season 2, but we're going to call it 32. I am your humble host, Mr. Cody Beekman. Along with me is Ross Shut the Door Moormeyer.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you guys doing tonight?
And I'm also joined by Daniel Not So Fleety Beatty.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And we've got a slice of Para-Bryce McMillan.
How's it going, guys? How's everyone doing today?
And today we have such an incredible guest on, a 20-year vet of the Denver Post, Avalanche beat writer, Mr. Mike Chambers. Mike, thank you so much for being on. What's going on with you, buddy?
Hey, guys. Hey, Cody. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for joining us, man. We've got an awesome show starting. And so we're just going to get right into it with a little bit of Hockey Day in history. Who wants to go first, boys? I'm looking at Ross right now. Let's go with Ross.
Right in betwixt my eyes. I'm going to go with Toronto Maple Leafs rookie Lanny McDonald. Scored his first goal in his NHL career. It came with the Toronto Maple Leafs 5-3 win over Montreal.
Beautiful. And, Lanny McDonald, the best mustache in the biz, baby.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that came at 1973, October 17th.
Beautiful. All right, Daniel, what you got?
I've got a great one. This one's so juicy. It's also Maple Leafs related.
Oh, there you go.
So we're going back to 1972, and this is on October 20th. And that's when team president Harold Ballard was sentenced to 2 consecutive 3-year terms for theft and fraud of money, goods, and services stolen from Maple Leaf Gardens. Ballard was released on parole. He was an owner of the Maple Leafs, and he was convicted of fraud, and he was just known for being just a ruthless guy that turned these Leafs into like a laughing stock in those 70s. And like he got fined for weird things, like when the league put down that you needed to put names on the back of jerseys. He didn't agree with it until they fined him every day, and he finally relented, but then he put the names on the back the same color as the jersey so you couldn't see it, just to be stubborn.
Oh my God.
He used to he built his own apartment inside Maple Leaf Gardens so that he could stay there and embezzle money from the team at the same time. He
sounds like a really stand-up
was
dude
really
there,
weird.
Daniel.
Like, he sold tickets to the Beatles playing a show at Maple Leaf Gardens, but then told the Beatles, "Oh, I just told you you're playing for a day, not that you didn't need to do 2 concerts." So the manager was pissed. They threw all the ticket prices up. They jacked up the thermostats and only sold large drinks at the concession stand.
Oh,
It goes on and on. The guy was kind of crazy, but that clearly was an interesting time in Maple Leafs history.
I should say so. All right, Brycer, what you got, bud?
For me, I have Kirk McLean became the first goaltender to appear in 400 games in a Canucks uniform, and Vancouver tied 7-7, but ended up actually losing later in the game to Los Angeles.
I think you just won over Daniel's heart with that Kirk McLean note, by the way.
I know,
one.
he's a big Vancouver fan.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, for mine, I got October 15th, 1986. Edmonton's Esa Tikkanen recorded his first NHL hat-trick, and Wayne Gretzky picked up 5 assists to lead the Oilers to a 5-2 win over the Quebec Nordiques.
Nice.
And who popped that beer? I want one.
Yeah, that's
Cheers to that.
that's Daniel right there. Oh, man.
So it's this day in history, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this day in history, October 12th, 2020. Vegas trades Nate Schmidt to the Vancouver Canucks for a 3rd-round draft pick in 20.
It just happened. Finally, we got a defenseman. Oh, my God.
Mike, I think you just won Daniel's heart as well. I think.
He looks elated right now.
Oh, Nate Schmidt.
Well, we were going 0 for 4 basically on RFAs and UFAs in the free agency period right now. We lost to Foley to Montreal, Stetcher to Detroit. We just were going 0-0-0s across the board. So finally someone.
Yeah, I mean, especially because all the rumors were like Barry to Vancouver until he signed in Edmonton.
Mike, do you think this is a good fit for Vancouver?
Well, I don't know. Vegas just did it for cap relief, but yeah, I think being that Schmidt's a good player, and obviously with what's his face 43. I can't think of his
Tanev?
name right now, but
Oh, Quinn Hughes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hughes. Yeah. I think it's a great move for Vancouver. I mean, as I said, Schmidt's a good player, and Vegas is relieved because they got some cap relief here.
Well, yeah, which actually leads us into a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. Like, I mean, we got draft and free agent frenzy, so I mean, we've got some big parts moving, and so let's talk about them a little bit. I mean, obviously, one of the big ones is Lundqvist signing in Washington.
Well, I never saw that. I never saw that coming.
Anybody got a little like reaction? Like I'm gonna be so shocked when I first see him come out in Caps jersey, and that's gonna be huge. Like, do you think he's gonna get more time on the ice, or do you think he's really more just like a Samsonov, will be like a Padawan kind of like thing, like a learned underneath a Lundqvist?
I mean, that's the role he should be playing probably at this stage of his career. Plus, what's great about it is Lundqvist said he wanted to go and win, and Washington is a competitive team, and he probably had a better chance even as a number 2 in Washington than he did with the depth that they had in the New York Rangers system right now.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I think they even took 3 goalies into the bubble, so this makes more sense for Lundqvist, and, you know, it is also, you know, Holtby then goes to Vancouver.
Yeah,
and it's like Ryan Miller 2.0 kind of situation where, you know, I heard when he signed in Vancouver, one of the first things he did was ask for Demko's phone number to kind of be that mentor role. He's on a 2-year deal. I love the deal because it's heavy loaded on the second year. So, you know, it's a little bit of a prove me for Holtby. He had a really crappy year last year.
Oh, yeah.
Demko did great, but for like only a few games in the playoffs. So it's going to be a 2-goalie year next year. I like the Holtby situation there too for cap reasons. Like, it exposes him in the expansion draft, but it's a lot of money for the team to take on, so they probably won't take him. But if they do, we got Demko protected, so that's good.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it plays out. But it's an interesting musical chairs. The goalie situation in free agency has been all over the place.
Well, even with Matt Murray going to Ottawa as well.
On an insane deal. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. And then another one I really want to talk about is Torrey Krug going to St. Louis for
I never saw
a
that.
7-year deal.
Oh, yeah.
That's huge. And the one thing I don't like about it is that it looks like the Avalanche are going to have to be playing him like, 4 or 5 times this year?
Easily.
God, that's going to be fun.
But do you like Marchand's send-off to him on social media?
I don't think I saw it.
Now I'm gonna be the only guy, the small guy on the Bruins, basically.
Well,
wish the best luck to you, there, bud.
Some people would say it's good that Marchand feels so lonely and dejected. I mean, some people. Let's just put it that way.
No, it is. I mean, I really do feel like that Marchand does have a very punchable face as well. Very punchable face.
Well, yeah, we'll give him that. But I mean, hey, kid can jam. So one more that I would like to say, like just to shed light on before we get into the rest of the show here, is Alex Pietrangelo signing in Vegas, which
that happened.
That just happened, yeah. So that's probably why
Schmidt.
That's why your Vancouver Canucks got that Nate Schmidt. That's going to be huge for them.
Boys, I got something for you, Beeks.
Oh, bring it on, Mike.
Got something for you. Hang on.
All right.
Oh, nice. There we go.
Yes, there it is. Oh, perfect.
Time. Pop one.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. That's the best segue into the next portion of this show. Let's talk Mike Chambers. Like I said, 20-year vet of the Denver Post. We're talking right about the Avs, a little bit of Pioneers. Mike, let's get down to brass tacks, man. How did you first start getting into like journalism and when did it really kind of like dawn on you that this is the kind of thing you want to do?
That was a long time ago, Beeks, but it's It was kind of one of the only things I was good at in school, and I actually I majored journalism at University of Northern Colorado, and I was more interested in TV and radio, but I was a good writer too, and then got a real job out of college at a PR firm. I was the media specialist, and I just wrote a lot, and then I was like, geez, if I enjoy writing business stuff, imagine if sports. And so I went for it. I quit my job and I said, I'm going to be a sports writer. Here I am.
Wow. And so, how'd you get hooked up with the Denver Post, man? Was it were you trying to were you like fighting at the bit or what?
Well, back then obviously the business was a lot different. But it was a 2 newspaper town, and with big, huge staffs, and newsrooms were giant, and everybody needed freelance writers to help them out with prep sports. So,
oh yeah,
I cut my teeth in prep football basically, and then did prep this and prep that, and then there was an opening for the DU Pioneers beat in 1995. Right when the Avalanche came here, and I write about the DU hockey team, and then I was also the 3rd or 4th guy in for the Avs, and that was way back in 1995, and then been part of the Avalanche coverage since.
See, and you know, I'm kind of jealous because there was once a time where I wanted to become get into journalism, and you really came around like right in the Avs heyday. Like, can you tell us about kind of like covering, not only one Stanley Cup but 2 Stanley Cups at the same time?
It's great. Yeah. Everything back then, people got their information from the newspapers and obviously the news stations as well, but being a sports writer was very, very prestigious. I wouldn't say that it's as prestigious now because there's so many people, bloggers out there that think that they can break news and do my job, which the truth is they can't. You have to have connections. You have to know a lot of people. You have to treat people the right way. And it's a long process, and it's hard to do, but you have to be a good person. Otherwise you're not going to get these contacts. And obviously you have to be a great writer. And there's a lot of younger people out there that I think that they can do the job that I do, but it's something that you really have to work at hard. And again, you got to be a good person, otherwise you're never going to get the contacts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're trying to be kind of an a-hole out there, like nobody's gonna want to talk to you. No one's, and I mean, yeah, like one thing that I learned, like kind of going through the classes through journalism, is that you gotta be able to like talk to people. You're not getting, people aren't just gonna hand you these just like these ideals or people to talk to on a plate just because you're like, hey, well, I'm from blah 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 and I'm writing an article, and you kind of act like an egomaniac about it. No one's gonna be giving you the leads.
Exactly. And Mike, you kind of take me as a guy that always almost assume that you're going to hear the word no a lot, and you have to get past that and be able to ask the right questions and not be afraid to, ask for a favor or a question or an interview sometimes. Just tell us about, one of your favorite interviews, one of your first interviews, and how did that kind of, take off and build your career? What are the best memories for you?
Yeah. Oh, I got a couple good ones for you.
Oh, here we go.
I was a young, early 20s, I think, when the Avalanche first came here, and we had our first year. It might have been the second year, I'm not sure, but Mario Lemieux of the Pittsburgh Penguins was on the road for the first time since he was cleared of his cancer
from Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Right. So he was only playing home games until then, but Denver marked his first road game in I don't know how long. and they sent me out there to do a sidebar. And Mario was great, but Yammer Yager ended up having a really good game. They told me to do a sidebar on Yager. Back then, he had the big mullet going, right?
Oh
yes.
yes, the Czech flow, yes.
So I walk into the Pittsburgh's locker room at McNichol Sports Arena, and I walk right up to him, and those were back in the days to where the guys changed in one room. So they had their gear on. They would take their gear off in the same room and shower and then put their street clothes on.
Yeah.
And so you kind of had more access because they weren't, racing out to another room. And he comes out of the shower and I walk up to him and I'm like, "Excuse me, do you have a minute?" And he goes, "No, I don't speak English, man." And pretty good English.
Yeah.
I was like, "Dude, I gotta write the story. You gotta talk to me." And I was too young to actually put my foot down and say, "Well, bad buddy, you're talking."
Yeah.
Anyhow, he goes over and gets dressed. He puts his street clothes on, and he has a conversation in pretty good English with the Pittsburgh beat writer. And I'm just sitting there going, "What an ass, man." He just told me to basically F off when I'm just trying to do my job. So, yeah, I've never, ever, ever been a big Yager fan, even to this day.
Oh, wow.
No, he's actually a beauty. I mean, I think he was playing in Florida at the time, and he slept with a girl, and then the girl tried to blackmail him.
Yeah.
Saying,
Go ahead,
I'm going
post
to
it.
talk all about this. I'm going to send pictures. And Yager's just like going, "I don't care. Do it."
I'm Yarmer
So,
Yager.
Yeah, I enjoy that part of him, but yeah, I'm still not a fan. But the best story, I guess, as a reporter was covered the Grand Prix at Denver in the summers, and Paul Newman was my dad's hero actor.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was a big time actor growing up, and he was. My dad loved him. I loved him, and here I am. All of a sudden, I'm in the same business, and he's got a race team, Newman Haas, and he's got 2 or 3 drivers. And they sent me before, I think it was the first Grand Prix of Denver, around the Pepsi Center. That they sent me to a track in Ohio, and I got a one-on-one interview in Paul Newman's transport. His basically a motorhome.
Oh,
I sat
yeah.
down with Paul Newman in his motorhome, and I was interviewing him, and it just blew my freaking mind. I just could not believe it. So that's probably the biggest interview I've ever done, and I'll never forget it.
Oh, I you know what? I can't blame you right there. And I bet that little that probably mansion on wheels was just so lavish.
Yeah, I heard that beer. It reminded me a lot of my dad, and so it was a good memory on both fronts.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. And Paul Newman slap shot. Anyone?
Oh yeah, definitely.
There you go.
That is huge.
He actually, Paul Newman came out and said that the most fun he's ever had on a movie set was Slapshot.
I mean, I
How could you not? How could you not? Seriously.
yeah, that's awesome to hear. But I'm not surprised. I mean, especially with the Hanson brothers, if you want to just call them that right now. That's awesome. That's really cool. So and I mean, you've had a chance to interview a numerous amount of hockey players. You told us the one that you didn't like. Who's the guy that you probably had the most fun with? I mean, obviously being on the beat, a lot of Avs players. You think you could narrow down one that's like either the funniest or probably the most entertaining guy?
I got a couple for you, Beeks.
I love it.
Ian LaPerriere.
Oh, good old Lappy.
Yeah. We got Lappy.
What a
hanging
beauty
up
he
here.
was. He was always so happy to talk to any media around, joking. Just a great guy. He'd tell you stuff. He talk a lot off the record, and he trusted you. So I appreciated that. I was just thinking of this guy today because he's on NHL Network. Shane O'Brien.
Oh, of course. I know Shane O'Brien. He was the Canuck for a long time. Oh, yeah. I had a burger with him in Vancouver one time, actually. He's a stand-up dude.
Great guy. I once wrote a story about him in the Denver Post, and it was about what it means to be a beauty in hockey. Like, when you're called a beauty in hockey, what does that mean? And Kyle Quincy talking about what a beauty is, and obviously it's got to do with you got to be really funny, you got to joke a lot, you got to be a really good hockey player and a tough one, you got to be good with the ladies. So you just go through this gamut of what it takes to be a beauty, and that was Shane O'Brien. So he was a lot of fun.
It sounds like a Mike Ricci almost.
Oh yeah, I mean, Mike Ricci was a total beauty. You gotta admit that, like, hands down. I mean, kid looked like a wet rat out on the ice, but man, could he pull it with the women? I tell you what. I mean, even back when I was a kid, I would hear that and like, ooh, I don't really care about that. I just care about the hockey. And now when I'm like 30 years getting longer in the teeth, I'm like, yeah. He's a beauty. That's awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna have to read that article. That just sounds incredible, man. Because I mean, that was a long time ago. That was almost like 08, maybe 09.
Yeah, I'll Google it right now, man.
Oh, perfect.
See, the thing I like about those players, though, like Shane O'Brien or another beauty to me is like a Ryan Whitney type player. Like he's got the chirping ability. They know that part of their game and being a good teammate is being a good personality on the team besides just their skill level, and they can break that tension and know the right thing to say to get a laugh when the team needs it.
And you could probably say this about Bieksa, because he always pranked his teammates out in Anaheim and stuff, being like door security and stuff, and like, they had all sorts of stuff, and he was always just, the guy you could depend on the ice.
Ryan Kessler did that for Anaheim too.
He
as
did,
well, right?
yes. No, those are two, and they keep on it. They just keep on going and having another one with them, and it's always great.
I like that. That's definitely a player. Like, we got the role players, but we got the beauties. We got the beauties.
Oh, exactly.
No, that's important. I remember Shane O'Brien played Colorado 2011-12, and then 12-13, only 28 games. And I remember
wow.
It was either the beauty story or another story. I remember him saying, thanks for what you've done, because he signed a $2 million extension. I'm not sure if it was a one-year deal or not, but he actually thanked me for writing that story, and he thought that it helped him get that extension. And I was like, well, you want to share some of that?
How about you send that to your folks and stuff, like get a little buzz about it. No,
but there was a fancy hotel he had in downtown. He rented out the penthouse. Is it the Four Seasons or something? But that was his home here in Denver at the penthouse. So you just knew that he was like the favorite teammate that, the boys are having a party. We're going over to OB's house. So,
I had such a great time, like, just shooting the breeze with him when I got to meet him in Kitsilano in Vancouver one day. And everyone around him was having such a great time, too. And he was really nice to anyone, including myself. That was one of those people that came up to him and was like, hey, man, like, how's it going? I hope you're enjoying your summer. And he was like, yeah, you want to have a burger with us? I was like, hell yeah, I do. So,
and that's what I think was so cool about the actual article you wrote. I mean, honestly, I'm a huge Avs guy. A lot of people I know are huge Avs guys. We knew Shane O'Brien for what he was on the team. It seemed almost like maybe that those last couple of years, he was just like a placeholder in some sense. But it's always really good to actually hear about what he is, what kind of guy he really is, and the charisma and the character that comes behind it. Because if let's face it, in hockey these days, you really only get to learn about like the big go getters, the all stars, or just the huge household names. And unfortunately, some of these smaller guys that may not have that kind of role on a team actually, get some exposure in such positive ways too, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah, I
All right,
agree.
I did some research here, boys. At the end of his first year with Colorado, Shane O'Brien signed a 3-year, $6 million deal. So it paid him $2 million for 3 seasons. During those 3 seasons, Avalanche traded him, and he mostly played in the AHL. He was making $2 million as a minor leaguer. FYI.
That's crazy right there, dude.
I'll tell you
Clearly, your writing has very big power.
I was just about to say, man, you've got the golden pen here, Mike. I'll tell you what, man. Let's get your kind of like outlook on the early exit. What do you think went wrong there?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think it was that early. Obviously, it was in the second round in Game 7, but
Yeah.
Injuries in the power play, I completely blame on that, and I think anybody who really studied it, I think that's where it takes you. Is the injuries were massive, and the PK was bad, and I think part of that is because you had Eric Johnson and Matt Calvert not playing. And then the power play, that top unit, although that top unit was healthy, it just didn't click against Dallas, and who knew why. But yeah, I think just injuries and special teams just like doomed them in that Dallas series. But I think Colorado was definitely the better team if they had, one, were healthy, and two, were a lot better on the special teams.
And that's it. Well, that's a huge thing too. I mean, Anton Khudobin playing lights out. That's not good for us at all.
No, we ran into a Yaroslav Halak of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I could not believe how well he was doing this whole entire series.
I wanted someone to give Dobby a sock so he'd leave the bubble and be free.
I think
Killer
we're all
Harry
at
Potter
that.
reference
Yeah.
there, bud.
I think we just want to do that at about game 6 or 7. That would have been nice to do.
All right, so now moving on, we've got the draft. Can you give us a little bit of a scouting report on our 25th pick, Justin Barron, correct?
Yeah. This is a guy, the Avs, Sakic and Alan Hemp, director of amateur scouting, both thought that he was going to be possibly a lottery pick or, in the teens somewhere. And they were really happy that he fell to 25th. He's not really a puck move. He's not a Cale Makar, but who is?
Right.
He's just an overall really solid a defenseman in juniors who they project to be a very good NHL player, or
You got
a very good professional. Yeah.
Sorry, bud. You got like, what is he? 6'2", 195 at 18 years old. That kid's gonna be a monster once he gets his like man body.
Nice hockey body going for him.
Yeah. And and I think with the drafting Cale Makar and Bowen Byram, and then locking down Girard for that long, you've got basically your goal scoring defenseman locked up. And I think it was pretty smart to get a bigger kind of defenseman in the draft to almost complement them in my eyes, at least.
And they re-signed Graves.
Yes, that also happened too. So. Moving on, let's go to free agency here. Mike, what do you think? Well, what do you like what they've been doing in the free agency breakdown?
Cody, they actually really haven't done much in free agency in terms of the big club, because most of their deals have been minor leaguers, but they've made these 2 trades, obviously, with Zadorov going to Chicago for Brandon Saad, who completes their top 6, and then obviously the big one, another big one today with Devon Taves coming over for 2 second-round draft picks in 2021 and 22.
Which has
I
to be-
I think I think Taves is a really good addition. Although he is unsigned, he's a RFA. This is a really good player who quarterbacked the Islanders' power play last year.
Oh yeah.
He's a very capable guy, and it just further proves that the Avs are such a north-south team, and that's how they want to play. They are willing to go with a smaller north-south guy like Taves instead of a shutdown guy like Zadorov. And I thought that they were going to move Zadorov the entire time because he's madly inconsistent, and I know how Jared Bednar thinks of him. So I expected him to get moved, and I think for him to get moved and Brandon Saad coming the other way, I think the additions of Saad and Taves.
I agree with that, but in addition to not just the power play, I think the Avalanche had issues with overtime play. I think especially with having Saad in there, you're gonna give yourselves a lot more opportunities to give yourselves more odd-man rushes to be able to work the puck down low with Saad.
He's a player that fits with the Avalanche system really well. I think he complements the rest of the team that is fast enough to open up the ice. Plus, it never hurts. We all know the depth of the Avalanche right now is to take him to compete for the Cup every year, and you just signed a Stanley Cup champion, two-time Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah.
And so this guy knows he's got that grit, and that's important because the Avalanche didn't have a lot of players last year or even this year that had like a ton of playoff depth or championship pedigree. And I just think of what the Avalanche need to do in this offseason as more like they got a couple more years with the big guys not needing new contracts. Let's work on the depth here.
Yep.
Let's fill out when someone goes down so that we don't have a repeat of what just happened where we have an Eric Johnson or a Matt Calvert go out and we don't have somebody else that can fill in there.
It's been 2 Game 7s, and you see that happen. Was it 3 now in a row? 3 Game 7 exits, and so it's a 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
I mean,
It's actually 4 since I believe 2004.
Yeah.
I wrote that, and it might be 5. It started when Patrick Waugh and the Avs lost 7-0 at Detroit in Game 7. I think that was 2002.
Okay.
But then they've also lost 3 or 4 other Game 7s since. Obviously, if you remember 2013, the Minnesota Wild here at the Pepsi Center.
Yep.
And then obviously last year against the Sharks in San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
Now going forward, Mike, what would you like to see happen to the Colorado Avalanche roster? Do you see anything they can actually work on, or maybe while this free agency is still going, maybe add to, or what's your thoughts on maybe adding or subtracting something?
Yeah, well, they need to sign Taves, obviously, but in terms of free agency, I think that they need to get like a Matt Martin in here, a fourth line grinder kind of guy who's going to, help the team into the fight. I don't think that they have that guy. I think that they aren't re-signing Gato on that fourth line because he's not that guy. And I think that, they basically need a Corey Perry, but not Corey Perry because of his age. Someone who's closer to 30 who can really, just a really tough depth forward, like a Patrick Maroon or something. I just think that those are the kind of forwards that you got to have if you want to win the Stanley Cup.
I agree that. I mean, look at that. I mean, all right, let's take it back 2 years. St. Louis adds Pat Maroon, wins the Stanley Cup. Tampa adds Pat Maroon, wins the Stanley Cup. I totally agree there. And I mean, you are I feel like they're kind of almost relying on Nazem Kadri to be that guy, but at the same time, man, you want him on the ice scoring goals, getting in the dirty areas, not trying to right the wrongs on the ice. So Yeah, I fully got to agree with you there.
What do you think about Joe Thornton?
He just laughs.
The Avalanche, Sakic and Bednar want to play fast, in your face, north south. No.
Okay.
Thornton is not the guy. He's just too old and slow. He's the first ballot Hall of Famer. God bless him, but no, he will not play here.
Yeah, to me it would seem like you're kind of like strapping one of those old timey jailhouse anchors on everybody's
A ball and
ankles.
chain.
A ball and yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
Which is exactly what Sakic got when he got Jerome McGinley, who was okay his first year here, but
Right.
He was overturned. Brad Stewart, same thing. Rene Bourque. Sakic learned the hard way that sometimes you get these mid to late 30-somethings and they're just going the wrong way. This game is all about speed and skill, and it's a young man's game now, right, boys?
Yeah. It really is.
Yep, I'd agree.
And the goalie situation is like that too. I've noticed, and I want to take a chance to what you said about Thornton being a full first ballot Hall of Famer, and just ask you about what it's like to be part of the Professional Hockey Writers Association.
I heard a beer there.
And how
You caught me. Dang it, Mike.
so did that it's I'm curious how that gets bestowed upon a person and what that meant to you when that happened, because it's an incredible honor, and we're very appreciative of your voice in the vote in these things. And if you could tell us a little bit about that, I'd be really curious and appreciative of that.
Oh yeah.
Sure. I used to be the Colorado chapter chair, but I did something that the national guys didn't like, and for some reason they took that away from me. I honestly don't know what I did, but and I tried to ask him, but just to deaf ears. But now I'm just a member, and I did not have voting rights this past season because the previous season I did not submit my ballot on time, and this might be why I got. I'm not the Colorado chapter chair anymore, and that's fine. But I missed half the season because I had 4 eye surgeries. Ooh. And I wasn't legal. Yeah. So I was on the sidelines for like 2.5 months of the season. So when it came down to vote, I was contemplating if I should just be an absentee. I didn't know if I should vote because I had missed so much of the season, and all of a sudden I get super busy, and then the ballots due, and I missed it. And so I didn't get to vote this past year because of that. And that's just a rule that they have, and I respect that. But getting to vote on the awards is pretty cool. And now, since 2018, they're all transparent. So, if I'm a homer and I've got a McKinnon on my Hart ballot as number 1, and then I don't have Connor McDavid or Draisaitl on the ballot at all because I have to pick 5 guys, right? So if I go McKinnon 1 and then I leave Draisaitl or McDavid off, it means that I'm a homer because I'm trying to get my guy to win. So since it's become transparent, you can't be a homer. You really have to vote from the facts, not from the heart. And as journalists, I think it's great because you gotta be reminded that you don't have any favorites here. Like you've got the ability and the privilege to vote. Do it the right way and don't be a homer. So to answer your question, that's why I like the PH so much. It's very humbling and it's fun to vote and have such a voice in these awards, but it's also important it's a reminder that you got to be a pro about it. You can't vote from the heart just because you cover these guys.
With great power comes great responsibility. Thank you, Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, eh?
But I like that transparency for the integrity reason. I know that creates a little bit of a dynamic with voting on players that maybe are deserving but are on a West Coast team because of time zones. And, you brought up, you were even wrestling with the idea of should you vote if you miss half the season for eye surgery. So clearly the integrity and maybe I shouldn't because I didn't stay up long enough to watch these guys play. Is that a real thing, or is that just something everyone like me talks about with people?
That's a great question.
The East-West thing?
Yeah, like, is that really a bias? Is that really a thing you believe in, or is that just all bullshit?
I don't know. It's a good question. I really don't know the honest answer I have for it. Other than it's out there and people say it all the time, so maybe it is a thing. But personally, I just like great hockey, and if I want to watch a game or a player play, I'm gonna stay up, or I'm gonna if it's an East Coast game, I'm watching it at 5 or 5:30. So I don't know. It's it may be. I mean, when the LA Kings are playing the San Jose Sharks and I'm in the East Coast and it starts at 10:30. Yeah, it's not ideal, especially if I got to get up at 6 a.m. Right.
Right.
I really like that answer, actually. I mean, yeah, if you want to watch hockey, if you want to watch some good hockey, watch it.
It's hard, though, with the lifestyle that we all want to afford. And I want to bridge into that lifestyle question now with like how with the bubble and the lockout, or not lockout, just the pause in action, and now we've restarted, and everything I'm reading says we're going to be going to like maybe a 2021 start, which would affect then the championship being awarded in like August, September, and maybe that's like the new cycle of things, like, which screws everyone's golf game up, I understand, but at the same time, what I'm wondering is like, if that's the new schedule, does it open up the idea that maybe it's not going to be so hard to lend players to the Olympics anymore, because now it's not going to mess with the NHL schedule as much? Like,
That's a good point.
Do you think that this shift actually benefits the league or the World Cup situation, like, overall at all?
Well, I think it benefits the NHL from getting away from competing with the NFL in the fall. I think that's a big issue in America, at least, and even in Canada, because they love their football. But if the NHL starts on January 1st or even mid-January, and then the Cup is, or the playoffs are being played in the midsummer, and the Cup is awarded in late August or September, at that time during the Stanley Cup run, you're only competing with one other major league sport, and that's baseball. So I think that there's a lot of reasons why the NHL might to a calendar year instead of starting in October as they've done for 100 years.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, let's all be honest with you here. I mean, baseball, it's the really, I think interest for baseball is just continuously going down the hill,
I mean, not to put my friend on the spot, but I asked him, like, are you watching the draft tonight? Rangers got number 1 pick. He's like, well, but there's a Yankees game on in the playoffs. And I'm like, okay. But I love the shift in schedule, because the other thing I've always noticed is like the NBA and NHL have a very similar type of league, 82 games, situations, same amount of rounds of playoffs. But what happens with the NBA is like the first 2.5, 3 rounds are almost like you can say who's going to win. And so there's so many more sweeps that go on that their finals ends up happening around the same time as the NHL finals every year. Even though the leagues are offset by a few weeks, they catch up once the playoffs start because it's not as competitive. And I always hated that, because I was like, this is when players, or this is when anyone like me as a baseball fan, I watch it in the playoffs.
Right.
And as a non-hockey fan, I would watch hockey during the playoffs, but then there's LeBron James going on at the same time. It's hard. It's hard to grow the sport when you have that situation. So what's awkward now is I love this calendar potentially changing, but it also is the same situation with basketball. Like they just finished as well, so I don't know if it's going to happen.
If you're a fan of all sports, if you can have at least all four of your sports have championships at different times, how great would that be for a super fan, especially here in Colorado when we're lucky to have all four major sports, right?
Denver has more professional sports teams than any other city in the United States. So,
and that's, we're not talking like multiple hockey teams. We're talking all four major sports, and that's pretty awesome.
I mean, even everything on the side. I mean, we've got two lacrosse teams, two professional lacrosse teams, the NLL and the outdoor lacrosse, and we also have MLS. We've got it all basically, and yeah, I could definitely see actually bridging a gap between each sports to see an actual championship on, or at least the playoffs in different times. So I really like that point that you brought up, Daniel. That's a good point.
Because Mike, like the World Cup is NHL owned, but the Olympics is not. So do you think this can benefit both at the same time if this were a new schedule? Because I'd like to think that this could really help hockey in general.
Tell you the truth, I really haven't thought about that. The Olympics are typically, Winter Olympics are typically in February, though, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I'm not sure that the NHL is going to be willing to not play for 3 weeks to put that on. So I think that could actually, if you're going to a calendar year, I think that could actually hurt them in terms of Olympics. And I want to see the Olympics back. I think we all miss it, and not having it last turnaround. Yeah, it's I think it really exposes our game to people that aren't exactly hockey fans. So I think it's really important, and I want to see it come back.
Me too.
I would hope in most players' eyes, just like, well, I would much rather hear about a start date sooner rather than later, because I do want to get back on it, especially with the teams that missed the playoffs completely. They haven't played since March, so I gotta kind of imagine that most guys are thinking maybe not such a long off. Long break would be too bad. I just kind of want to get back on the ice. I mean, maybe that's just me being naive. I know all these guys got all these players have kids and family and stuff. But I mean, if it was me, I'd just want to get back on the ice. But
But as for fans, I guess earlier the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the NFL, it's one thing if you only play 16 games and you got to delay one a little bit for COVID. It's another if you play 82.
And I think that's, something NHL really can, pride themselves on is, we were really one of the first sports to announce a champion during a pandemic. And we did it almost all correctly without, having a whole lot of issues. I mean, immediately you saw the MLB have issues. Now you're seeing like the Tennessee Titans, for example, NFL having issues. So it was kind of nice to see, at least one bubble, at least, a good sports organization like the NHL handle it, pretty well.
Unfortunately, though, they're saying that with the revenue that the NHL makes in comparison to some of the other never fail leagues, for example, you just can't. It isn't sustainable to do these bubbles.
Which Mike,
can I add something there, boys?
Oh, absolutely.
I did the research and wrote on this for Sunday's column I do, but the NHL can't afford to play without fans as much as these other can. When you talk about the television deal, the NHL is happy with their TV deal. It gives them approximately $200 million annually, and that's split between the teams.
Okay.
But basketball, baseball, and especially football, you're talking billions. like it is so much more revenue for those leagues than it is for hockey. It's unreal.
Oh,
So if the NHL continues to push back their season, it's because they really don't want to play unless they can at least get half the people, half of a sellout in there.
Right.
And I think so.
It's a great point that you bring up, Mike, about how much more dependent on the fans the NHL is compared to other leagues. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle that as a solution, because I think they can't do just 2 bubbles, but maybe they can do a few, kind of like how they do spring training in baseball with a few different hubs. It'll be interesting, because I think part of the reason they chose Canada was because when they had to make a decision, everyone knows with COVID, everything's unknown. So they went with a place that had the least unknowns. And so I can see that becoming a thing for hockey. But I'm really glad you brought up that point, because it shows that if we're wondering why it hasn't restart, we kind of have our answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to the Florida Panthers in Sunrise, Florida, and it's a great road trip.
At least you say it's a great road trip.
I've been to those too. The preseason against the
I
Carolina.
stay in Fort Lauderdale, and I make the 35-mile drive, and it's cool. And I love the Arizona's place in Glendale, which is a lot of fun too. But I've seen those crowds, and those franchises, and maybe Carolina too, they're struggling already to make money, and they just don't have the fan base like a lot of other teams, especially in Canada.
Let's talk about, going into expansion. I mean, obviously the league nobody knew that this COVID pandemic was going to work out, but now we are in it. And I mean, with the league expanding to Vegas and now to Seattle, like how is that going to kind of work out for the league when we have these teams already struggling in Sunrise and Raleigh and Phoenix, like, so where do we go from here when we're adding another $50 billion franchise on, when we're kind of struggling for money just because we can't get fans in the situation? Where do you think we go from there?
Everything's up in the air, brother.
Yeah.
Only thing I know is where my first beer is coming from, where my next beer is coming from next. But yeah, it is just it's so up in the air, and you just have to sit back and wait. But I don't have any answers for you.
Well, it is really all up in the air. It really is, and it's great that most fans still stuck together during the playoffs and all that. But we'll have to see. So I'm gonna end it with just one more. Like, what do you think about this? This might get a little gnarly, but what do you think about this whole Kroenke kind of cable deal? Do you think it'll get fixed by some sort of foreseeable date?
For the next interviewed hockey game, hopefully it gets fixed. Yeah, what do you think?
I don't know if it's going to get fixed, but I'll give you my opinion on the whole thing, and it's probably exactly what you guys think. Is I just, as a hockey fan, as a person that needs to watch these games, I feel for the fan, because it's a battle of billionaires. Mm-hmm. And if you're Stan Kroenke and you own two franchises, or 3 if you include the Rapids, and you start a regional sports network, and you can't offer your fans the opportunity to watch your teams on your network, then you got to get out of the business. and I just think that Kroenke, he's worth $8.6 billion. Okay,
easily.
what his deal previously with Comcast and Dish was what it was. Today it's different. They don't think it's worth as much. Okay, then take a hit, whatever you can, but make sure your teams are on TV, and any excuse why he can't do that is just BS.
Hear, hear.
Couldn't have said that better myself.
Agreed.
Well, damn, Mike, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. That was a pretty awesome episode, boys. Would you guys like to send any shout-outs to anyone?
Give a big shout out to Mike. I really appreciated his insight. I also want to give a shout out to My Beer Nation. It was nice to crack some brews on this episode and have Mike join us in that endeavor.
Yeah, he was loving that.
I just want to remind everyone to give them some love, and also just want to give a big thanks to all of our listeners, as always, and appreciate you being with us as we start on to season 2.
And I'll like to piggyback onto that. Yeah, thank you for joining us for season 2. And also, big shout out to Mike. If you want to, you can join him on Mike Chambers on Twitter or Facebook, or you can do his blog on LinkedIn. Thank you all for everything that you do.
Of course, me, shout out to Mike, My Beer Nation, everyone who listens to this. Really do appreciate it. And really hope you guys tune in again soon. See you next couple weeks.
Yeah, I think you guys said it all. I mean, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time. So, vi hörs.
A bientôt.
Salut.
Auf Wiedersehen.
See you guys.